Coming up next on the Retirement Halftime Show, making taxes work for you in your retirement. The steps to take now to set up for a bright future. Plus, we'll go inside the IU basketball locker room with Coach Mike Woodson. His advice for keeping your cool when things aren't going your way and how that relates to financial planning. And details on what Medicare covers. It's not as much as you might think and how you can protect yourself. And going on a spending diet to fatten up your retirement fund. Now on the Retirement Halftime Show.
You wouldn't play a game the second half the same way you would the first, especially if you have the lead. This is the Retirement Halftime Show, helping you maintain your lead in retirement.
I'm Heather McWilliams, and welcome to the Retirement Halftime Show. Joining us is Alex Joyce with ReJoyce Financial. Today we're talking about tax planning in retirement. Alex, I could tell you exactly what I have saved in my 401k and my Roth IRA. But when it comes to paying taxes on that money in retirement, I have no idea. Am I alone in this?
You're definitely not alone in this, right?
Okay.
And I think that there's comfort in working with a firm like ours because of a holistic approach, right? Mm-hmm. Tax filing, as we'll get into, much different than tax planning. Estate planning, what is the difference between a will and a trust? Different for everybody. Every family has a unique proposition. And so when it comes to tax planning, it is not abnormal when you're saving, as we really call the first half of your financial life. All right, There's two distinct phases, if you will. And when you're climbing this mountain, most people's minds aren't on how much do I have to pay in taxes. They're really saying, hey, I've got a qualified plan or I've got an IRA. How much should I be maximizing? Is the employer matching? What is my balance, right?
Yeah.
And they're just focused on that. And so when you get really to the top of this mountain where you're nearly at the peak, and that is different for everybody in different ages and different goals, if you will.
Right.
Could be an asset level goal. I want XYZ dollars in retirement, if you will. Or it could be, I want XYZ lifestyle in retirement. There's no real wrong answer for that. But when you're coming down this mountain, if you would, on the second half is really where we focus for our clients, if you would. The priorities change, Heather.
Right.
I mean, it is really organizing and looking really at what we call the asset location and actually building a plan to follow. Because assets have a different structure, right? I mean, an IRA is taxed differently than a Roth IRA.
Right.
Taxed differently than a brokerage account.
Right.
Taxed differently than, and let's get trust taxes, if you will. And so it's good to have all of those legs under the table or under the stool, if you would, but understanding the location in which you want to start taking, or the distribution a phase, if you would, from those assets is really going to determine a lot. Medicare, it's going to determine Social Security.
Yeah.
It's going to determine earned income versus capital gains taxes.
Sure.
And so, of course, the big takeaway is work with an advisor early on.
Yes.
Right? And to determine what tax status or what the taxable assets are going to look like.
Yeah, because when I get into retirement, my tax bracket could change, right?
It is. It is going to change.
Yeah.
One of the things we do when we're looking at, tax planning, if you would, is this clever thing. Of course, somebody would call it a backdoor Roth or a Roth conversion, if you would, which is the concept of paying taxes on the seed versus paying taxes on a harvest. And most people would say, well, I'd rather pay taxes today at our rate versus what the taxable dollar could be in the future. And so when we do a true analysis of how much for how long, it would determine if that person is a good candidate, good fit. And once we really kind of draw a fork in the road, if it's a yes or if it's a no, then we start planning according. But again, keeping a tax bracket down to make sure the eligibility requirements fit, which means we're not spilling over into the next bracket. Everything has to really gel. And by working with a planner versus a filer, that's when you'll really get that good advice.
Right, because I think a lot of people don't know that there is a difference between tax preparation and tax planning. They're not the same thing.
You're right. And I think most people have a good CPA, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers, have a good CPA, or we probably have some CPAs viewing, right?
Yes.
And so I think that it takes a true understanding of where they thrive, right? And what you're really trying to, as an individual or business, really what you're trying to achieve, right? In what I usually tell our clients when they're chasing return, which means they still want to make a lot of money, and everybody wants to make a lot of money on their money. They don't want to lose any money,
right?
But when they are chasing return, as I call it, I say, well, isn't making your portfolio 20% more tax efficient a return? And most people would say, yeah. And I say, well, that's a real tangible return, one that you can carry forward. And so we want to make sure that we're not just crossing the T, dotting the I. Of course, that is important from a filer standpoint to make sure everything is perfect to get it off the desk and filed correctly. But I think it still leaves a question of, hey, how can I make my taxes go away?
Right.
And I think that's the question most of our clients are asking, and we need to address that head on.
And it's all about maximizing that tax advantage savings. If people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
They can always call. We get a lot. We've been doing this for years, and so our show, yet again, different. Unique, but I think anybody should feel comfortable taking that leap of faith and calling, scheduling what I call a visit. There absolutely is no pressure.
Right.
It is only getting to know a family, seeing where the value is, see if there's anything we can help. It is a conversation. It doesn't cost anything either. It is seriously painless, right? I say that from my perspective, but just pick up the phone and call and take action today.
Thanks, Alex, and make sure you stick around. We have a lot more coming up.
Still ahead on the Retirement Halftime Show, IU basketball coach Mike Woodson talks about the pressures of coaching, his tips on dealing with adversity on the court or in the stock market. And we're talking about Medicare, what it covers and what it doesn't, what you need to know before you make any decisions. And reducing expenses now could mean a better retirement later.
The journey to retirement takes many twists and turns. Don't take that trip alone. Let the team at ReJoyce Financial be your co-pilot. The expert team of financial planners can create a roadmap that gets you to your goals. They'll work with you to create a financial plan that gives you confidence and peace of mind. Start the process today. Call 317-903-9157 or text 707-ReJoyce. Rejoice in your retirement.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
Planning to win. Coaching strategies for financial success. Here's Alexander Joyce and Indiana University men's basketball head coach, Mike Woodson.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I am your host, Alexander Joyce, and with me today is Coach Woodson. We're here in Bloomington, and of course the theme is you would not play a game the second half the same way you would the first, especially if you got the lead. And Coach Woodson, I mean, you know this best. When you're coaching, if you will, of course you're the head coach. You've done this for how long?
23 years prior to coming here. I've been coaching, yeah.
And so, I mean, when you're coaching a team like you do, right, and you're the head coach and you are approaching the buzzer, right? I mean, you are winning the game. There's got to be a lot of pressure there, right? And for us, when we're coaching our clients, if you will, especially when it comes to retirement planning or investments, as we do in an environment like this, it's tough, right? I mean, there is a lot of pressure. How do you keep your cool?
Well, I don't look at it as pressure. I think because I've done it so long, I think fans and media people and just people in general that watch sporting events, they get so caught up in the moment.
Sure.
And I think as a coach, I've learned it over the years that, I try to keep my composure and get caught up in the game as it's rolling. And things are adjustments that I have to make during that particular moment. And mainly trying to keep the players calm and in a good place, a good space. So, I mean, there are a lot of intangible things that come along with coaching. And I've just been one over the years after getting into it and having some experience in doing it that I try to mainly keep my composure because that's what's important, especially if it's a close game and you got to make a decision or call upon the player to be able to respond to something that you're trying to get done. So
Sure, that's crucial. And for me, I completely understand because when you have somebody that's worked their whole lives and they put trust and confidence into you, into me, right? And to keep your composure, it's sometimes, as they say about the market, people sell out of fear, right? They get they get worried that they're unable to make their lifestyles whole, right? I mean, they've got their Social Security coming in, they've got their pension coming in, but there could be a gap where their lifestyle looks like, I'm used to making $100,000 a year, but my fixed income is only $30,000 a year. And so I need my assets to give to me, $70,000 if you would, to make me whole. And when they're losing 20% or more, and we're going into times where inflation is high, the pressure is high in the market, it gets difficult, right? And as you mentioned, Coach, it's you being the face of that, they look at you, as my clients would me, with confidence, right? That leadership ability to take them to the next level or to keep them calm going into that second half, that means the world, right?
Well, you got to be in a good space. I think I tell people all the time, because I hear that a lot, boy, don't you feel the pressure? There's a lot of pressure coaching,
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that based on the fact that I've done it a long time and I feel good about what I do. And I tell people that and even in the business world, if you a CEO of a company, you got to feel good about what you do.
That's right.
In order to direct people that are under you in terms of what you want them to do. And if you don't feel good and if there's some looseness there, then I think you can lose the people that are under you. So I feel good about what I do as a coach, and I'm just trying to get guys to respond and buy into what I'm doing.
That's right. That's right. And as you mentioned, right, the team it works both ways, right? It's the exterior part of the team, which perhaps could be the players, if you will. And then they're the people below you, the internal pieces of the team that you have to feel confident. There's a loyalty aspect there as well, right? Leadership is leadership on both sides.
Absolutely.
And it's really unique because I admire your work. I really do. I mean, I admire your career. It's just been absolutely phenomenal. Being a guy from Ohio. We didn't, Cincinnati, if you will, so we didn't really have an NBA team. So I'm looking at your track record of success, Ray Allen and guys like, LeBron and things like that. It's amazing. What is your take, if you will, if you don't mind me asking, what is your take on, not just the athleticism, but when you're coaching guys or coaching individuals at that level, is there different styles or a different mentality? How do you get them bought into the culture? Is it an immediate? Tell me a little bit about that. What's your view?
Well, again, they're there for a reason because they are great players and great athletes. And I've always had, because I played, the 11 years that I played, and I came through an era which was the 80s, where the talent level was incredible. When you think about back to Magic and Bird and Kareem and Dr. J and Michael Jordan, Isaiah. It goes on for days in terms of talent. And it's amazing to me how the players today have become even more talented players from an athletic standpoint. I never knock players once they make it at that level. It's now, how do you stay there?
Sure.
And a lot of these players, they truly put in the work in the summertime. All the players, the great ones, work. Everybody works because once you taste it, you want to stay there.
That's right.
You don't want it to be a 1 or 2 year deal and then you're out on the outside looking in. But these cats put in a lot of work and time, man, to really develop their skills. And for me, coaching them, it's amazing because, the things that they don't lack or the things that they do lack, I put it that way, they make up for it in other areas.
Sure.
So from a coaching standpoint, you're trying the things that they do lack, you're trying to, help them along, because if they get better in areas where they're not really that great in, it helps you as a coach. You become a hell of a team, and I've seen that done on the highest level. I look at that Detroit Piston team. Larry Brown took that team, and he took it from a good team to a great team.
Right.
And when we got to the playoffs that season and got into the finals against the Lakers, where no one had us winning a game.
Right.
And hell, we should have swept them. We beat them 4-1. But
yeah.
I don't know, NBA basketball, in all sports, all professional sports are But they are amazing because these athletes, boy, and ladies, I look at the ladies too. I can't exclude them.
Sure.
Women's basketball and women's sport in general. You look at them and you shake your head. I've always said the women's basketball is more fundamentally sound than men's basketball. They get it.
I understand
and we're still trying to search and figure it out to a certain extent.
Right, I understand that completely. Those are powerful words,
Next on the Retirement Halftime Show, Medicare and you. Should you choose original Medicare or would Medicare Advantage be a better fit for you? Pros and cons of both ahead, plus tax planning and your retirement. We'll detail the first step to getting started on the right foot.
Hoping to have enough income to last through retirement isn't a strategy, it's a recipe for failure. Everyone needs a tangible plan. ReJoyce Financial can help you get on the right path. Come in for a visit and let's discuss what's going on with your financial well-being. We're an inclusive team that won't offer judgment, only ideas on how to make your money work for you. Give us a call at 317-903-9157. Let us help you rejoice in retirement.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I'm your host, Alexander Joyce, and with me today is Angie, and we are still on the topic of Medicare. She is our Medicare expert. I would call you that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. And we're really diving in this series, I guess part 2, if you will, about Medicare in terms of what does it cover. Medicare doesn't cover everything. That's one of the biggest questions we have. Where should we take that?
That's right. That's one of the most common myths with Medicare. When you're signed up for Medicare, you're still going to be responsible for co-pays, deductibles, and premiums. So you're going to want to talk to a licensed agent such as myself to figure out how we can bridge that gap and get you the full inclusive healthcare that you're looking for.
Yeah, because people think, hey, I'm now Medicare eligible, or even those that retired early, let's say 62, and then they've filled that gap perhaps with their assets and they've waited, or even some took their Social Security sooner to fill that income gap, and then they kind of pay out of pocket, or maybe they have COBRA, or they have some kind of supplement from their employer, maybe, hopefully, yeah, or they're just, like I said, paying it out of pocket. It's a fortune, right? I mean, it's a little sloppy in terms of the healthcare system, but they get to 65 and they're like, finally, right? And then they figure Medicare is going to pay for everything, and it just simply doesn't.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
What can somebody expect when they have to pay a copay? I mean, what's normal? I mean, I don't maybe push on the spot, but I'm just curious.
The copay is going to be determined by the doctor and the service.
Where you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really not a simple answer, Alex, because something's different for everybody.
Yeah.
There's 2 different paths you can go down with Medicare. You've got your original Medicare, and that's going to be Part A, Part B, and then your D, prescription drug coverage. That's where you pick up your different supplements and start to bridge those gaps. Yeah. They're going to cover things like deductibles and co-pays and different things that Medicare doesn't just straightforward pay for.
Yeah.
That's an option for everyone, but for some people, but not everyone. Others like to go the Medicare Advantage route. That's more like what you're used to with group. You'll get your dental, vision, Part D, the drug stuff is included in it.
Yeah.
But it's usually just a tight, nice little package.
Okay. And a lot of times, from what I've read in my study, in where, my practice, our practice, I should say, is it still true from a Medicare perspective that Advantage plans still carry no premium? No payment? Is that still very common, you see?
It's very common, yes. But you've got to consider what's important to you.
Yeah.
It's a pay now or pay later situation.
Right.
What do you prefer? With your original Medicare, you're going to pay a little bit more each month with your monthly premiums.
Yeah.
But then when things happen down the road, there's less surprises.
Right.
With Medicare Advantage, you might have 0 monthly payment, but when things happen down the road,
a
little bit more of a question.
You got to pay a lot.
A little bit, yeah, sometimes.
Okay. I think when years ago, probably a decade ago, I was working with a client, and they had this chart at the kitchen table. Actually, they had this chart, and it had like Plan N, Plan F,
yes,
Plan G, right? All these different letters. And what the takeaway for me was to learn that they're all standardized.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They all cover the same thing.
That's exactly
regulation,
right.
Right? But what was very unique is that the price is different. And the carrier can set their own price.
Yes, sir.
Right? But the plan type, whether it's G or N, is standardized, which means it covers the exact same.
That's right.
So it can be confusing.
Yes.
You got to talk to an expert.
We kind of akin that to gas.
Sure.
Whether you go to Shell or Speedway, you're getting the same gas.
You're getting the same gas.
The price is going to depend on how nice is the building.
That's true.
The overhead. Are they going to email you a policy, or are you going to get a big fancy envelope? And that's what those costs are.
You know what's so true? You pay for, sometimes what you pay for is what you get. There's certain things in life you probably shouldn't go cheap on. Dawn dish soap is one of them.
Right. Yes.
Tide detergent may be another. And your Medicare is probably one as well.
That's right.
The topic on Medicare is something that is truly unique, and to have somebody like Angie in our office, in our practice, on the planning side of our firm is truly opportunistic and very unique. It's fortuitous to have somebody like this alongside of us in our leadership staff to help our clients and educate them along the way when it comes to Medicare and making decisions. If you want to learn more, just pick up the phone. Don't hesitate to call. Pay us a visit today, and we'll sit down and see what we can do to help. Thank you, Angie. It's been a pleasure. Stay tuned, folks. There's more show to come.
Next on the Retirement Halftime Show, getting ahead of your tax burden now and in the future. Learn the 3 ways a certified tax advisor sets you up for success.
Your choice of coach matters. Choose the best financial coach in Indiana to be on your team. Alexander Joyce and the ReJoyce Financial Team have the knowledge and bench strength to make your money last. Text 707-ReJoyce. That's ReJoyce with a Y. Or call 317-903-9157 to schedule a no-cost, no-obligation visit to get your retirement game plan in order. Your financial coach matters. Choose only the best. ReJoyce Financial.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I'm your host, Alexander Joyce, and with me today is Marquita Berry on our tax planning side of the practice. Tax planning is extremely important. You know, when we discuss the comprehensive approach of an overall plan, Marquita, it is essential to me as we built this process to partner and have people like you a part of our team to really discuss the intricacies behind taxes, right? Not necessarily the law. I think that is the behind the scenes, and I think that it is very important for us to know that. But for our listeners and our viewers, I think that just understanding that we are a holistic firm and really what that means. And our show, the Retirement Halftime Show, of course, the philosophy is you wouldn't play the game, the second half, the same way you would the first, especially if you have the lead. And I think that what most people want to take away from this, in me interviewing you, of course, is why tax planning is such an important part of an overall financial plan. I mean, what do people, when they look at their wealth and they're counting the dollars in an economy like this where it's extremely volatile and they don't want to lose money, right? They still want to make money, of course, opportunity, if you will, but not risking their principal to do so. When we look at the tax efficiencies inside of a portfolio, what are the pieces, or what are some of the first things, if you will, from a kind of a step one? What should people consider before coming into our practice, meeting with you or a person on your team when it comes to tax planning?
For tax planning, I think that clients should consider what the overall goal is.
Sure.
With tax filing, which is what a lot of clients may have, we're looking at recorded history, things that have already happened, and it doesn't give them a chance to adjust or have great input on the outcome. So tax planning is to be ahead of what you're going to do to minimize the tax burden in the short term and the long term.
Right. And isn't that important? Because I think that what people struggle with, because, I call this, of course, our mountain concept, the Mount Everest concept, where, the first half, as you're climbing that mountain, you're saving, you're being frugal, you're being conservative, you're funding your 401ks, you're doing your Roth IRAs, your self-directed IRAs, everything you can to maximize your savings. And I think that when people approach the very top of that mountain and they look out, and of course they're excited, but at the same time a little anxious, right? Because it's like, how am I going to get down? You got to spend that money, and you got to make your lifestyle whole. And I think that what people really, from my experience, and of course you can speak to this from a tax perspective, but in my professional experience, I see that is one area that is very commonly ignored, where people think that, I'll get the same type of tax forms I did when I was working, W-2 employees, if you will, or maybe a Schedule C on a self-employed person. And I think that they very commonly neglect the differences between tax planning and tax filing. And so I love what you said about understanding what we're trying to do from a tax planning perspective. Of course, we want to file your taxes too, right? I mean, don't misunderstand. But we want to make sure that we're filing that the most efficient way possible. You would agree?
I totally agree. And it's so important to understand, just break it down into three simple steps to understand where the client is. Like, what has happened before you met with us and you're taking advantage of this great tax planning service that's included for you being a client.
Right.
Where have you been according to your tax and tax profile? Where do you want to go? Which is, we take a lot of time sitting down with the client to understand where do you want to go? What is the outcome that you want? Right? And then we give them the plan to get there. And it's so amazing the differences versus, being young, earning income, you have children at home, you have these deductions and credits, they go to college. Well, moving into retirement, some of that has changed. The household composition has changed. The ways that the income come into the household have changed. And there's a tax effect on that. If I earn money from employment, is going to be very different than now I'm retired from earning employment and I'm now spending this money that's now categorized as investment income. So the money is going to have the category that it has. But my job is to continually study, get all the alerts, stay abreast of the changes, and make sure that the way it's structured fits what our client wants to do and maximize kind of where they overlap.
Let's get that conversation started today. You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. Marquita, always a pleasure. Take that step in the right direction. Stay tuned, folks. There's more show to come.
Retirement isn't a game to lose. Your financial future hinges on every play. Follow Alexander Joyce and the ReJoyce Financial Playbook to score the points that set you up for life. Win at retirement by calling 317-903-9157 and schedule a no-cost, no-obligation visit to get your retirement game plan in order. Don't lose where it counts the most. Call 317-903-9157 to schedule a visit now.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
Today's tip of the week for stronger financial health. Prices are high, and they're not getting lower anytime soon. It may be time to go on a spending diet and save some of your hard-earned money for your financial fitness. Americans spend an average of $55 a month on streaming services. Pause or cancel one or two subscriptions to save $10 to $40 a month. None of us want to forgo the convenience and joy of dining out. In fact, the average household spends $3,000 a year dining out. But can you eliminate one meal out a week? Put those savings in your emergency fund. And finally, rethink date night. You don't have to spend a lot of money to show love. Enjoy the quality company more than the cost. Today's tip of the week for stronger financial health.
Thank you for watching the Retirement Halftime Show. If you have questions about today's show, give us a call, send us a text, or go to our website. Most importantly, maintain your lead in retirement. I'm Alexander Joyce, and I'll see you next time.